heart is full of hate. He butthurts, cries, and a dark shadow falls over this troll. From the ashes of a once great fandom has risen a meme, an LOL that must be liked. We look to the airways for a vindicator, someone to strike fear in the dark basement of the parents who created him. The battle between fan and smart has begun. With a head on his shoulders stands the smart fan, a speaker of truth, with a voice of silence, and a radio show of justice. This is Ring Rust.
WWE Hell in a Cell from this past Sunday on the WWE Network from the TD Garden in Boston, Massachusetts. So we got 8 matches here to recap, or paper review as I like to say, because it's a pay-per-view and I'm reviewing it, and view has view, and anyway. So in the pre-show match we had a quite popular 6-man tag match, because they've done it now 3 times. They did it the week before, or the week leading into, I guess I should say, the pay-per-view, and they did it on the pay-per-view, on the pre-show, and then they did it the week after, even though they replaced Sin Cara with somebody else. Still though, they kinda, I don't know if that's what they're gonna, I hope that's not what they're gonna do indefinitely. Like, I don't mind it occasionally, but it seemed like it was wearing a bit thin. So at any rate, and you know me, I like naming tag teams, so there'll be a name for the 6-man tag, and then there'll be a tag team of 2 people within it, so just so you know. So, it's Odd Man Out, which is Cedric Alexander, and that guy doesn't have a mask, which is Lince Dorado and Sin Cara, since they both have masks, and Cedric doesn't. And anyway, versus Win It All, which is Tony Nese, and the new classics, Drew Gulak and Arya Daivari. So, I did predict that Odd Man Out would come out on top of that one. I didn't predict who was going to pin who. It didn't seem an important enough detail, I don't think. I mean, who knows? Maybe someone did. I wouldn't be too surprised if someone predicted this particular person was going to pin this particular person, and then they got outraged when that didn't happen, because that's obviously the best direction to go in. Because, you know, you sitting in your armchair as a booker, an armchair booker, in other words, obviously have a much better sense of what's going on in WWE, or what should be going on, maybe, I should say, in WWE, than WWE itself does. But hey, you know, they only have paying jobs where they're booking this stuff, and the vast majority of them, if not the entirety of them, have superior experience to you. So, there's something to be said about doing things a new way, but then again, once you get there, someone else is going to think you're doing the wrong job, and they're going to be the new way. So, be careful what you wish for. You are listening to Ring Rust Redux on Jabronology TV. This is Fat Boy Mark Jabroni. You are listening to Ring Rust. So next up, for the WWE Hell in a Cell from this past Sunday on the WWE Network. So the first of the 3 main events, as the first match of the show was one of the 3 main events. Like I said last week, I can understand them trying to make it special. You know, trying to one-up. You know, Raw's trying to one-up SmackDown, SmackDown's trying to one-up Raw. That's great. That's, as could be called, friendly competition. But, you know, well, I mean, they also have to throw, you know, it's what's known as throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. Or running it up the flagpole to see who salutes it, whatever colloquialism you wish to go with. This one, I don't think very many people saluted. Not only a triple main event, but having one of those main events as the first match. having more than one main event is always going to be frowned upon because the main event is the last match of the show. You can't really call any other match the main event except the last match of the show. I mean, that's just from wrestling's bygone days that started. Like the very first show, presumably, they said, well, and our main event, which is the last match, of course, of the show, which why would we call anything else the main event? Because it's the main, it's the main attraction. You put the best thing on last, really, I guess, is the most anticipated thing on last to have people actually stay and wait to see it. So, I guess, I don't know. I mean, in boxing, the main event is the last match. So, in MMA and UFC, the main event's the last match. So, I don't know. It's just basic logic being thrown out the window for the sake of being a little bit different. And, well, on the other hand, we are talking about it. So, I guess it also falls under no publicity is bad publicity. So, radio shrug. At any rate, Roman Reigns successfully defended his United States Championship against Alexander Rusev, with Lana in his corner somewhere. She was there, I guess. I didn't really see her all that much. Anyway, I did actually predict it the other way. I predicted that Rusev would actually win that match, but I guess they really want Roman Reigns to continue being the U.S. champ for the time being. Emphasis on for the time being, but, who knows? Maybe he's holding on to it till John Cena comes back. I don't know. So, he'll be back after Survivor Series. So let's see who's the champion after Survivor Series, I guess. You're listening to Ring Rust Redux on Jabronology TV. Next up from WWE Hell in a Cell from the WWE Network, saw Bayley defeating Dana Brooke in a hey, stop picking on me match. Of course, it would have been if Dana Brooke had won, it would have been why you hitting yourself match, I guess. So, anyway, that's kind of how it worked out. So, yeah, Dana Brooke has been picking on Bayley, via Charlotte for a while, or Charlotte's been picking on her via Dana. I don't know which way it would work. Charlotte sent Dana after Bayley, basically. So Bayley's gonna get past Dana Brooke and probably go after Charlotte. Now that, something that happened later on in Hell in a Cell happened. So, I'll let you know what that was in the event, of course. Going into this episode of Ring Rust, you haven't already seen it, or at least seen results. In which case, congratulations, you managed to avoid the internet since Sunday. So, radio shrug. You know me, and the WWE divas who are now just female superstars. I don't know why you wouldn't just still call them divas, I guess, or, I don't know, come up with some other title. I'll just call them divas for the sake of just lumping all these lovely ladies into one group. And the TNA knockouts, and, the rosters of Shimmer and Shine and all these other all-women promotions and all those vixens and the femme fatales and all of them. You know what I like to say about them? Some of them are only nice on the outside. But what a nice outside they have. With my favorite old joke that I like beating like a dead horse. You're listening to Ring Rust Redux on Jabronology TV. Mine are the roundest. This is Fat Boy Mark Jabroni. You are listening to Ring Rust. Next up, for WWE Hell in a Cell from this past Sunday on the WWE Network, saw Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson, WWE Bulletproof, as I call them, defeating Can't Teach That with Enzo Amore and Big Cass. I did predict it the other way around because, A, I really like Enzo and Cass, so they seem to be a good team. And B, I didn't really think Gallows and Anderson would be hurt all that badly from a loss. Makes more sense, though, in retrospect, of course, that they should win if they're going to be a serious contending tag team for the Raw Tag Team Championships against the New Day. But That's how I called it. No regrets.
It's that time of year again. Time to get in your votes for the Ring Rust Year-End Top 50 Countdown, where I run down my favorite and your favorite wrestling-related songs and wrestling-instant themes from 50 all the way to number 1. Just like CHMR's Ring Rust on Facebook, and post your vote in the appropriate thread. Check it out on the last Friday of this year and the first Friday of next year.
Done, LaShmoo.
Mine's bigger than yours, haha.
Ooh, that's gotta sting.
R.I.P. Katie Vick. This is Fatboy Mark Jabroni. You're listening to Ring Rust. So next up for WWE Hell in a Cell on the WWE Network. So the second of the three main events. Hang on a second. The second all the quote unquote main events were all in Hell in a Cell matches, and I mentioned last week how it would make more sense to do all the Hell in a Cell matches together, but I guess I was using old thinking, because used to be when you had a cage match of any kind, you had to actually set up the cage. Like in the 70s and 80s and even into the 90s, you had to actually build a cage, around your ring, and that's like. And now for intermission, and then after the intermission, we're going to have this cage match. So see in 10 to 50 minutes, or however long it takes to put the cage together, basically. But nowadays, they just, they assemble it before the show, and then they hook it up to cables or whatever, and lift it up to the ceiling. So that's what they do nowadays. They can just lower it, and, within 5 minutes, they can have a Hell in a Cell match. They don't even do dum 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 anymore, or do they? Did they? I don't know. I don't think they did. They didn't certainly for the first one. They did something. I don't think they did that bass line for the second one. And I don't think they did anything for the third one. They kind of it was just what we went back and it was kind of in place. So, anyway. Again, not really complaining, I guess. I did predict that Kevin Owens would retain his WWE Universal Championship against Seth Rollins in the Hell in a Cell. So, I wasn't really anticipating being disappointed at any rate. So, even if Seth Rollins had won, I would have said, hey, Seth Rollins won. He's the Universal Champion. Third ever in almost as many months. So, I mean, it's not really anybody's fault, I suppose, deliberately, that the first ever champion, Finn Balor, is out with an injury, and he'll be back soon, hopefully. And then they had to crown another champion right after that, so I expect to see some good things from Kevin Owens, mainly because he's shown me lots of good things. So I'm just expecting that to keep happening. So here we go.
This is the Great Cactuar Slamming Wrestling News Radio on Ring Rust, CHMR 93.5 FM.
This is 93.5 CHMR FM.
Presents Macho Facts. Randy Savage once worked as a weatherman for the San Diego Evening News. His forecasts were always the same. Partly cloudy with 70% chance of pain. And simply by pulling on both ends, the Macho Man can pull diamond back into coal. me on Facebook, tinyurl.com/ringrust. Follow me on Twitter @MarkJabroni. And subscribe to Jabronology TV, youtube.com/fanboymarkjabroni.
So this is Fanboy Mark Jabroni. You're listening to Ring Rust. Next up for WWE Hell in a Cell from the TD Garden in Boston, Massachusetts, saw the Brian Kendrick defeating TJ Perkins by submission for the WWE Cruiserweight Championship. I did predict that Brian Kendrick would win it. It just seemed like that was the direction they were going in. It's like when Dolph Ziggler said, if I don't win the Intercontinental Championship from The Miz, I'm going to retire, and then he won the WWE Intercontinental Championship. So, not to be overly negative or anything, not to say it's predictable in that way. It's not a bad thing that something like that is predictable. It's like, oh, I see where they're going with that. And then you just sit back and you watch it happen. It's like, yeah, see? I mean, the specifics of how it happens, like, you know, you can't really predict the finishing. Like I don't think you would have predicted that it was by submission necessarily. Although he does have that rather neat submission, so it probably would have been. Anywho, like I said, I did predict it was going to be the Brian Kendrick. On Twitter, Mr. Brian Kendrick, MR. Unlike Doctor Who, which is not Dr.WHO. It's MR Brian Kendrick on Twitter. Of course, with the anyway. So.
Oh, is it hot in here? Or was I just engulfed in flames? And broads.
Ooh, Sprickins is sexy.
From the best of the Wirtz, 15 years on the road with a 77-inch pianist. This is Fanboy Mark Jabroni. You are listening to Ring Rust. Got 2 matches left for WWE Hell in a Cell from the TD Garden in Boston, Massachusetts on the WWE Network. The Tag Team Championships for Raw saw International Powers, Antonio Cesaro and Sheamus defeating by disqualification, unfortunately, the New Day, which was who was from the New Day? Big E and Xavier Woods, so that's Booty Tootie. Because I like naming the specific, like, you know, like the New Day is the 3 of them, and then any 2 iterations have a different name. So Rudy, Rooty, is Kofi Kingston. Tootie is Xavier Woods because of Francesca. And Booty is Big E because of, yeah. So that would be Tootie Booty, because it was Xavier Woods and Big E Langston, with Kofi Kingston at ringside. Sheamus ended up, like, smacking around Kofi Kingston, and Kofi Kingston got a... Anyway, and, yeah, so that's how the disqualification happened, and, yeah. Too bad. I mean, this is their first time challenging for the title, so they're not going anywhere. They're not going to lose out on... It's not like their only chance. They're going to feud for it for a couple of months at least. I'm sure Survivor Series will see something pertaining to it, if not the next pay-per-view after that.
Like me on Facebook, tinyurl.com/ringrust. Follow me on Twitter @MarkJabroni. And subscribe to Jabronology TV, youtube.com/fanboymarkjabroni.
So, final match for WWE Hell in a Cell from the WWE Network saw Charlotte Flair defeating Sasha Banks to win her second WWE Raw Women's Championship. And it got some interesting notes here from that match regarding Charlotte versus Sasha for the Raw Women's Championship at Hell in a Cell. Vince McMahon allegedly had been against the match closing the show, but may have given in the night before. Triple H and almost all the creative team had been pushing for the match to go on last. Sources report that plans had the Boss retaining the title as late as a production meeting the night before the pay-per-view. The plan was to end the Banks versus Flair feud, for now at least, with the Cell match and have Charlotte move on to Bayley. However, Vince reportedly changed his mind and had Charlotte win the title. At least one person in McMahon's inner circle says the McMahon-opolizer changed his mind on the finish the day before, not the day of, and that just a few people close to him were aware of it. To add to that, top officials told everybody else a different finish at the Saturday night production meeting. There's an explanation for the change, but it wasn't the company swerving to producers like they did with Brock Lesnar and The Undertaker, as everyone was told on Sunday that Charlotte would be winning. The reason for the change had nothing to do with heat on Sasha, her being hurt, or anything like that. It was also said that the former WWE Divas and NXT Women's Champion winning had nothing to do with WWE keeping her 13-0 pay-per-view streak intact. Charlotte's streak is just something that happened and isn't something that's been part of the long-term plan. Officials also took 2 major spots out of the match because of concerns that Sasha would suffer an injury. One spot was apparently a moonsault from the top of the cell by Charlotte. WWE Hall of Famer Ric Flair appeared on Busted Open Radio this week and had this to say. They took 2 huge spots out of the match during the match because they were afraid Sasha Banks was going to get hurt. If the original plan had been, there were 2 things, and I don't want to say what they were, but you can only imagine. One of them involved a moonsault. So he didn't want to say, but he just said. Radio shrug. For those wondering, Sasha isn't injured as she worked a recent live event in Germany and lost to the women's champion.
That's it for another show, kiddies. Check me out on Facebook, where you can keep track of all the news that's right on the mark, from around ringside to the latest concerts. See you at the shows. Later days.
This is 93.5 CHMR FM.